10 years in, and I love him more than I can handle. Spouse appreciation. Some people meet by chance. Others, by choice. But then there are the rare few. The ones who meet because the universe refuses to let them be apart. The ones whose paths cross not by coincidence, but by design. That's what meeting him felt like. It wasn't just attraction. It wasn't just luck. It was as if something bigger than us was shifting the timeline, bending reality, moving the pieces into place until there was no possible way we wouldn't find each other. We met on a study abroad trip our university hosted, though fate had already placed us in each other's orbit long before that. For an entire year, we unknowingly lived in the same dorm building, passing through the same halls, breathing the same air, but never once crossing paths. Not until the universe made sure we did. It was the second night of the trip. I was running late to our group dinner, and, because of it, I couldn't sit with my friends. Instead, I took the only open seat left, and when I looked up, I locked eyes with the most captivating man I had ever seen. That night, we talked endlessly. After dinner, we wandered into a hole-in-the-wall bar with a few others from the group. I was 19 and inexperienced with drinking, so I ordered a tequila sunrise, solely because the name sounded cool. I took one sip and instantly regretted it, discovering that I absolutely loathed tequila. Without hesitation, he offered me his drink, a sex on the beach, and took my tequila sunrise instead. The weird part? He hates sweet drinks. In the 10 years we've been together since, I don't think I've ever seen him order one again. To this day, neither of us can explain why he ordered that drink in the first place. It was as if something, fate, the universe, something bigger than us, was already in motion, pulling us toward each other in ways we couldn't yet understand. From that night forward, everything moved fast. Undeniable chemistry, a gravitational pull too strong to ignore. By day 4, we had already slept together. I had always tried to set rules for myself. Don't sleep with someone until X amount of time has passed. But with him, resisting felt unnatural. Like fighting gravity. He graduated 2 years before I did, and for a while, we lived in that strange in-between. Not quite together, not quite apart. We were 3 hours away from each other, close enough to make the drive, but far enough that every goodbye felt like a small heartbreak. We made it work, seeing each other once a month, counting down the days until the next visit. Almost everyone around us doubted it. You're young. You're in college. This is the time to be free and have fun, which, I can only assume, meant going to bars, having meaningless hookups, and pretending love was something temporary. But that was never us. Because even when we were apart, we never really felt distant. And even if the world told us we should be out chasing distractions, we already knew we had found something that couldn't be replaced. Finally, in 2017, I graduated, and we moved in together. No more long drives. No more counting the days. Just us, finally closing the space that had never really existed between us to begin with. We got engaged at a concert in 2019. Completely spontaneous, completely unplanned, and absolutely perfect. He had already bought the ring but hadn't decided when or how to propose. In the end, he didn't need a plan. He just followed his raw, in-the-moment feelings, which was so much more powerful than any elaborate setup ever could have been. Since he didn't have the ring at the concert, he formally proposed at home later that night, getting down on one knee while Alley-Oop by Big Wild played on our speaker. That detail seemed small at the time, but we had no idea how much that song would come to shape our story. I was never someone who dreamed about my wedding day. To me, something as sacred as vows shouldn't be said in front of a crowd, and I could never justify spending an obscene amount of money on a single event when it could go toward travel, adventure, and experiences instead. So, we never really cared to plan a wedding, until one day in the spring of 2022, when he casually turned to me and said, "Hey, want to elope next month?" Of course, I said yes. We got our marriage license and set a date just 10 days later. Everything was falling into place effortlessly. Then, 5 days before our elopement, I almost lost him. Serotonin syndrome, caused by 2 medications that should have never, ever been prescribed together. I found him on our kitchen floor, convulsing, his body temperature spiking to a lethal 108 degrees. The hospital later told us that if I hadn't been home, he wouldn't have survived. When he came home from the hospital, still weak, he grabbed the marriage certificate and said, "Let's sign it now. I can't imagine dying without being married to you." So we did. In our state, you can legally marry yourselves. No witnesses, no officiant, just a signature and a promise. We still went through with our elopement in the mountains 5 days later, exchanging vows, rings, and forever. It was perfect. Summer 2022. Big wild concert. It had been years since his spontaneous proposal, but when Alley-Oop started playing, it hit like a tidal wave. I had no idea what the set list would be that night, and I wasn't expecting it to be played. But when the song dropped, I collapsed to my knees in tears. It felt like the universe was speaking to us again. That night, we came home and made another decision, one just as life-changing as the last. We decided to stop contraception and try for a baby. Pregnancy didn't come easily. Despite having every classic symptom of PCOS, doctors dismissed me. "You're fit, you don't look like a man," they said, as if that somehow invalidated my body struggles. Eventually, I found a doctor who actually listened. The diagnosis was PCOS with a blocked fallopian tube. He recommended medicated cycles with letrozole, and on the very first round, I got pregnant. For a brief moment, we thought we had our miracle. But then, just as fast as it came, it was gone. A loss so profound, so devastating, it almost broke me. Still, we didn't give up hope. On New Year's Eve 2023, on our third round of letrozole, I conceived again. This time, she stayed. For the most part, my pregnancy was easy. No morning sickness, no complications. I stayed active. I felt strong. But the most magical part? The way she responded to his voice. Every single time he said her name, touched my belly, or spoke to her, she would kick. Every single time. It was like she already knew him, already felt safe with him, already recognized his voice as home. Then, in mid-August 2024, at 34 weeks pregnant, we had tickets to see Big Wild again. The concert. The one that had unknowingly shaped so many milestones in our story. I woke up that morning feeling awful, sore, irritable, exhausted, in pain. But unless this baby was literally crowning, there was no way in hell I was missing this show. The sentimental weight of it was too strong. I powered through. The concert was incredible. And once again, Alley-Oop was performed, and again, I broke down sobbing over how full circle it all felt. What I didn't realize, it was about to become even more full circle than I ever could have imagined. We got home late, collapsed into bed, and fell asleep for maybe 10 minutes before. POP. A massive pressure shift in my body, followed by a gush of water. Oh fuck. That wasn't just third trimester soreness. We rushed to the hospital, where the intensity of it all escalated quickly. An unplanned C-section because she was breech. A baby coming too soon. A moment where everything felt out of my control. But somehow, despite her early arrival, despite the fear, despite every unknown variable, we were so lucky. She avoided the NICU. She was small but strong. And in those first overwhelming, sleep-deprived days, when we were suddenly parents with no family around for help, we had only each other to lean on. It wasn't perfect. There were tense moments, exhaustion-fueled arguments, waves of emotion neither of us were fully prepared for. But we pulled through, not because it was easy, but because we were never going to do anything but pull through. Now, 5 months into this wild new reality, everything is so much more fun. The sleepless nights have faded. She is an angel who sleeps 12 hours straight. The anxiety has lessened, and what's left is something incredible. This tiny human who somehow fits so seamlessly into our world, like she was always meant to be here. She's eccentric and weird, just like us. The kind of baby who makes expressions that have us actually in tears laughing, who reacts to the world with the same chaotic energy we always have. She's already obsessed with her dad, just like I am. The way she looks at him, I swear she's already picked up on what I've always known, that he's something rare, something extraordinary, something to never, ever let go of. And somehow, through all the chaos, all the changes, all the exhaustion and adjustments, I look at him, I look at her, and I realize something I never could have understood before. This is love in its most expansive form. Honestly, I think the universe knew what it was doing when it gave me fertility issues, because if it hadn't, I would have had 50 of his babies by now, happily and without hesitation. As far as our relationship and sex life postpartum, everything I ever heard about love and intimacy after having a baby was negative. People told me that passion fades, that exhaustion takes over, that physical connection becomes an afterthought. I even heard, just wait, you'll hate your husband postpartum, or you'll be lucky to have sex once a month. Well, the opposite happened. To be fair, our sexual chemistry has always been insane. From the very start, it's been constant, overwhelming, nearly impossible to go more than a couple of days without. Even years into our relationship, marriage, and now parenthood, we've never been a once-a-week couple. We're talking several times a week, minimum. But somehow, it keeps getting better. We joked the other night about how I always tell him it's the best sex ever, but how can it just keep leveling up? If the first few years were heroin, then post-marriage it became fentanyl, dangerously addictive, something I needed rather than just wanted. Sex now is straight-up carfentanil, deadly, lethal, like I'm spiritually obliterated and somehow reborn every time. Somehow, in ways I can't fully explain, our love, our attraction, our intimacy, our connection, became something completely unrecognizable in the best way possible. It's like my entire perception of attraction has changed. I used to be someone who hated body odor. Now, I swear I want to ban showers and deodorant altogether. His scent is addictive in a way I cannot explain, like my body instinctively recognizes him as mine, down to a biological level. It's not just that the sex is better, it's that it's no longer just sex. It's something cosmic, something so deeply woven into my body and soul that half the time, I end up crying after because the intensity is too much to hold inside. It breaks me, and then it puts me back together. And it's not just physical. He can touch me in the most innocent, non-sexual way, and my entire body responds. A hand on my face, fingers in my hair, his breath against my skin. It's like my body doesn't even need permission. It just knows that it belongs to him. I can't explain why this happened. Maybe it's because giving life to our child made me see him in an entirely new dimension. Maybe it's because the love I already had for him expanded beyond what I thought was humanly possible. Or maybe it's because we were always meant to be this, but it took time, growth, and everything we've built together to fully unlock it. All I know is that, somehow, instead of losing ourselves in the chaos of parenthood, we found each other again. And what we have now, it shouldn't even be possible, but it is. And I can't imagine ever existing without it again. Some people find love, others build it. But us? I think we were created for this. Every twist of fate, every full circle moment, every impossible connection, it all led here. And no matter how many lifetimes, how many universes, how many realities exist, I know one thing for certain. I will always find him, and I will always choose him, again and again, forever. Being his wife is truly the biggest honor of my life.